Hey guys, it's Kevin on the movie for you guys, and this movie reviewing, this is a movie that I've been looking forward to for quite some time now. I know this movie really has not been doing all that great, but I was definitely very excited to see it, and I finally got the chance to do so, and that is none other than George Clooney's new film, Suburbicon. And what Suburbicon is essentially about is we kind of have two different stories going on here, which that's something that the trailer didn't really tell you. But what basically it is Matt Damon and Julianne Moore, they play this couple in basically suburban 1950s type area. And this is an area where nothing bad happens. Everything's great. It's an all-white neighborhood. And suddenly there's this home invasion. And basically, after this happens, Matt Damon ends up losing his wife. This is not a spoiler. It happens in the trailer. He ends up losing his wife, and his wife's sister comes to take care of them, and that's kind of the one story going on. The other story involves this black family that has now moved across town, which basically everyone blames as the catalyst for all of the recent happenings that's been going on in the town. So, Suburbicon, like I said, I was honestly really interested in this movie. I thought it honestly had a lot of potential. I love films that take place in, like, the 1950s where, like, everything is perfect. It gave me a very Pleasantville type vibe, and that's what I thought this was gonna be. I thought this was gonna be like Pleasantville, where you think this area is great, and it's just not. You know, it's a lot more infested than everyone thought it was. I thought that's what this movie was going to be, and I thought it had a lot of potential. Unfortunately, not only did Suburbicon really disappoint me, but this isn't really even a good movie. In fact, I kind of hated this movie, to be honest with you. I kind of hated this movie. Suburbicon is one of the biggest misfires of the entire year. There is so much that this film just completely neglected. There is so much stuff that this film ignored, and that could have made it so much better. And we're going to get into that all right now, starting off with the cast. And going into this film, that is in fact one of the selling points. I think most people are going to go to this movie. One of the major reasons is for the cast, which you absolutely should, because the cast here is really good. Matt Damon, as always, is great in this film as Gardner. I thought he definitely did a really good job with what he had to do here, especially scenes where he has to be very cold and calculated, because that's really who Gardner Lodge is. He's very cold, he's a very hardening character, and Damon did a really good job with that. There's one particular monologue that he has in the film, and I thought he honestly did a really good job. I definitely really did love what he did in this, I definitely really did like what he did in this film. He definitely did a really good job here, and I was very impressed by him. And then Julianne Moore as well. I don't know what's up with her playing these psychotic type characters, but she plays another one in this film. Like I said, she plays a dual role of Rose, but mainly as Margaret, Aunt Margaret. And her character, to say she's crazy is a bit of an understatement. There definitely is a lot of undertones there. Especially after Kingsman. I mean, this is basically, she's not nearly as psycho as she was in that movie, but this is definitely still, she's pretty crazy in this film, and she did a good job as well. I thought her and Damon had decent chemistry, and I thought she overall was pretty good. However, for me, the biggest stand in this movie is Oscar Isaac as this character of Cooper. He was fantastic in this film. He comes into it a little bit later, but once he comes in, he just injects a lot of fun and a lot of playfulness in this role. You can tell that Isaac was having a lot of fun here. This guy, he's very shady. You don't really know, what's up with him, but he definitely knows something's up with this family, and he really wants to get to the bottom of things, and I definitely really loved his character. I thought he definitely did a really great job here, and he easily sold the show for me. He was fantastic. And then the only other character I really do want to talk about is Noah Jupe as Gardner and Margaret's son. I thought he honestly did a really good job here. I really did like the character of Nicky in this film. Nicky is sort of the innocence in this film. He very much is the consciousness that we need in this movie, and I thought he honestly did do a really good job. Unfortunately, in terms of positives, that's kind of it for me. The cast here does a really good job, and that's one of the things that kept me from at first not hating this movie. When the movie started, I thought it was just okay, but we're gonna get into the biggest problem, and that is George Clooney's directing. Because, to be honest with you guys, I don't think George Clooney was a horrible director going into this. Coming out of it, I honestly don't want him to direct anymore, because he doesn't know what he's doing. And especially this movie, he doesn't know what it wants it to be. Does he want this to be sort of like this dark comedy film that's like poking fun at 50s movies, you know, and like 50 sitcoms? Is that what he's trying to do? Does he want it to be this home invasion thriller? Is he trying to make some sort of social commentary on, you know, racial inequality, sort of like, you know, what Get Out did? Is that really what he's trying to do? It just seems so confused me. It didn't really seem like Clooney had one specific direction. He just had all these things that he really wanted to do, and there you go, you have your movie. Similar to how people feel about Darren Aronofsky in Mother, that's how I feel about George Clooney in Suburbicon. To me, this entire film felt like he just wanted to make a political statement, and that's why he made it. And now we get to my biggest problem, which is the screenplay, because as good as Matt Damon and Julianne Moore are, that's really it. I can't tell you much of anything about their characters. I can't say anything about Gardner Lodge, can't say anything about Margaret, and that's not because they're spoilers, it's because the movie is extremely vague when it comes to their characterization, or lack of, honestly. I hesitate to even say Julianne Moore is a character in this movie, because most of the movie is just her in the house doing all these crazy things, and that's really it. We don't get into her character. There's not really a scene where we see, I mean, we see that she very much is crazy, but it's like the most one-note type characterization you could go, and it really just amounts to a couple things here and there. And Matt Damon especially, I think really people are gonna be disappointed, because people are gonna come to this film thinking Matt Damon is the main lead, and while he is, he just doesn't really have a lot to do here, and he's not really given much of a character other than he's just very cold and calculated, and nothing really seems to faze him, and he's reacting very weirdly to things that have happened. I mean, it really didn't work for me. The biggest sin for me this movie commits, though, is that it honestly has the wrong main character. If this film was to revolve around Gardner's son, then it could have actually been a really good flick, because everything going on with Nikki in this movie, I actually really did like. Like I said, Noah Jupe is one of the better child performances I've seen all year, and that's mainly because of how well he plays it. Nikki, from the second that Rose dies, he really starts to get suspicious of his family and starts to figure out that something definitely is going on here. He can't be trusting these people, and he starts to turn more and more against them throughout the movie. We're talking about a little boy here, but he honestly did a really good job, and there are some really good scenes between him and the, you know, African-American boy next door. I thought they had some really good scenes there, but again, the movie just doesn't focus on it enough, and that was the stuff I really wanted the movie to focus on. I wanted to focus on Nikki's torment. I wanted to focus on how Nikki, you know, he was the one that was, the smartest out of everyone. He knew exactly what was going on. If he was the main focus, this could have actually been a really solid film. And people have talked about Oscar Isaac, and look, here's what I'm gonna say. Isaac did a really good job. It's just, I really wish we had more of that in the film, because honestly, he's in 2 scenes in this movie. He's billed as the 3rd main character, and he's in 2 scenes throughout this entire film. And it's just really a huge letdown, because most of this film doesn't really go much of anywhere, especially the whole storyline with the Black family. They really could have taken that into a cool direction, but they don't do anything of interest with it. I mean, it just, they discuss it here and there, how the family's responsible for this, and we're gonna blame them for this. You see, like, all these riots going outside their house, but it doesn't really do much more than that. It's barely scratching the surface of these issues. Again, it just seemed like Clooney wanted to address these things, but for some reason, he didn't want to tackle it completely, and that really makes me wonder, why did he even go in this direction? Because to me, it's the Black family seemed like they were in a completely different film. I don't even understand why they were here. There was nothing about in the trailer that suggested that that was going to be an element. To me, it just seemed like Clooney just shoved that in here, and it just really didn't work at all. I don't really know. Again, I don't understand what he was trying to do there. Why did you focus on this family? I mean, we don't find out anything about them. You barely see anything of them in the film, and the fact that we keep going back there, it just doesn't add anything to the story. It also doesn't help that besides Nikki and possibly Oscar Isaac, kind of, there's not a single likable character in this entire film. Gardner and Margaret, I mean, forget about it. They go through, I mean, throughout the film, they commit so many just horrible things. I mean, they're killing people, they're, being very deceitful. There's all kinds of things going on with them, and they're just really unlikable characters. And I was very surprised by how unlikable they really were. And again, these are your main characters in the film, and there's nothing to get behind because we don't get into their characters enough. We don't see what they're going through. The film makes attempts where maybe you'll see Gardner at work and, you know, you see these robbers tormenting him or things like that, but the film doesn't dive deeper into it. It doesn't go into his psyche, seeing how this is affecting him, you know, or having some quiet character moments. The film clearly doesn't care about that stuff, and it really did piss me off, I have to say. Also, I do have to say here, the cinematography is really great. I really love the cinematography of this film. I think it's very well lit. It feels like a 50s film. Immediately, you feel like you're in the 50s. There's this really cool opening where the narrator kind of introduces you to the town, kind of like what you saw in the trailer. That actually is the opening scene. I thought it was honestly really well done. And I definitely really did like the cinematography. Also, let me just say right now, the comedic beats in this film really don't work at all. The comedy, I honestly did not laugh much at all throughout this movie. There really were not too many jokes that got me. And honestly, they didn't even feel like jokes. They just kind of felt like they were being witty just to be witty. And I understand the Coen brothers were behind this, but I expected a lot better for them. And it just made me wish that they directed this movie. If the Coen brothers directed this, I think the movie would have felt a lot more well realized and a lot more focused than it really was. Because honestly, it just felt really fragmented. And the editing as well. I mean, the editing is so all over the place. We'll cut from, you know, Nikki and his black friend having a conversation to Gardner at work to Margaret at home, and they don't feel like they go together. They don't feel like the same movie. There were scenes in this movie that felt like there were things missing. I honestly felt like I was missing things throughout this movie, but I was laser focused onto throughout the whole film. I was completely focused on everything that was going on. There wasn't a point where like I drifted off or anything like that. I knew very well what was going on, but it felt like they really didn't know how to tell this story. It felt like George Clooney, he had this idea, they just didn't really know where to go with it, and it just didn't really work at all. And when the film concluded, it was so rushed and just such a mess that I honestly can't tell what George Clooney was trying to say about this film. It started off, I thought it was going to give some, like I said, social commentary on politics and, you know, race and things like that, but then the film ended, and I'm honestly struggling to comprehend what was the point of this. What was he really trying to get out of here? I honestly have no idea. I've thought about it, and still nothing. It really just... This was just a huge misfire in every way. This film extremely disappointed me. Suburbicon is one of the biggest disappointments of the entire year. This film could have been something really great, but unfortunately, it couldn't even reach okay status. It's just such a broken film that I can barely even say I recommend it. It's not worth your time at all. It is, again, just a huge disappointment in every sense of the word, and unfortunately, I am going to give Suburbicon a D+. So overall, guys, my review of Suburbicon. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. Left your thoughts on it. Like I said, there were a lot of good ideas in this movie. It just didn't come together at all. And honestly, I think Clooney needs to take a break. I think he's tried directing and it just hasn't worked out. And I honestly think he just needs to take a bit of a break. But that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoy. I'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.